Hey all, it's me. We're gonna read Threefold, Segment 4, Section 2. It's entitled Jeopardy. Junyo, Chio called to him. He glanced at her. What's on your mind? Chio asked cheerfully. Work. Before all this began, when he tracked down serial killers and complete monsters for a living, life had been simple. He remembered. Family. Yoshino, his mother, Akira, his sister, and Takashi, his father, crossed his mind. He had blamed himself for Sam's death once. He remembered. Friends. There, his and Sam's, former friends he left for dead. He blamed himself for Sam's death until he realized death was a part of life. Mourning wouldn't bring a person back. There was a reason for his biological father's death. His biological mother had been behind it, and she didn't do it lightly. Why had Akira believed he needed to know these events? He wanted to know the answer to this question, but at the same time, he preferred not knowing. The peace he had acquired years ago he found slowly fading. The farther he traveled down this path, the more dead bodies he uncovered. This unsettled his world, and the unsettling of his world left him indifferent. In response to his Aunt Chio, he didn't say anything because there was nothing to say. He only looked in her direction. He's trying to process what I told him, Noriko said. It probably wasn't easy to take. He's trying to figure out how he feels about it. No, he wasn't trying to process how he felt about his past. He wasn't angry, depressed, or hurt. How could he miss Noboru and Rie when he never knew them? Knowing them and growing up with them would have been nice, but Yoshino and Takashi had done a great job raising him. They had taken his biological parents' place. He's not feeling, Chio said. If anything, he's indifferent. Chiyoko, Atsuko, and Tsuyoshi, along with Hugo and Guinness, watched him reveal a short smile. You're right, Junyo said. Chio laughed, which drew everyone's attention. Shocking how similar you two are, Chio told Noriko. And how different he and Noboru are, Masahiro said. That caught Junyo's attention. He used to wear his heart on his sleeve, Masahiro told him. Fascinating. 5 years apart and your siblings still know you three pretty well, Chio said. People still change. They either mature or regress. What makes you say that? Hugo said. Do you know more than you're letting on? She does, Guinness said. She and Mateo had a long conversation. He likes to hear himself talk. They have that in common. They're close, Chio said, paying no attention to Guinness's agitated comments. They've had to rely on each other for a long time. She spoke Mateo's words, Junyo presumed. Another piece of the puzzle, Hugo said. We don't need to rely on each other, Guinness said. We can take care of ourselves, even Hugo. Chio smiled. Hugo sighed and slowly shook his head. Chio stared at Junyo until their eyes met. Your differences put you at an advantage, Noriko said, albeit a slight one. She spoke Akira's words, Junyo presumed. This was about tragedy. When they were met with the tragedy in question, they would each handle it in their own way. Atsuko, Tsuyoshi said, you're shaking. He's heartless, Atsuko said. Her words surprised Chiyoko, which Junyo could tell by her barely audible gasp. What happened? Chiyoko asked, concerned. Atsuko kept quiet because her mother shook her head, indicating she should remain so. He's not heartless, Guinness said, annoyed. You don't know anything about him, which means you don't know what you're talking about. I understand, Hugo told her. I know how you feel. He shrugged. I hope that brings you comfort. I can't say anything else. They didn't need to rely on each other, but they respected each other and accepted each other for who they were. This could be one of their differences that put them at an advantage. They weren't close enough to be blinded by each other's flaws. Atsuko stared at the three of them, standing together. She focused on him. It does, Atsuko said to Hugo. She took a deep breath. I remember when I spoke to him last night about Uncle Noboru. She paused. What you plan to do is wrong, but I won't hate you for it. I only hope you'll take a different course of action when you finally confront her. Atsuko? Chiyoko questioned her. Some things are better left unsaid, Atsuko said. Trust me, I'm fine now. Thanks for understanding, Hugo. And I needed to hear that, Guinness. Listening to his long-lost relatives exchanging words with his two traveling companions made Junyo look at his life and character from a different angle. He recalled his conversation with Shinjiro, who also called him heartless. He wanted people to believe he was an uncaring man because that belief kept people at a distance. It wasn't who he was. Perhaps when he was younger he had been more like his father. But all the tragedies brought out someone else, someone to fight back against life's tragedies and deal with the consequences to bring not only himself, but also others, order and peace. What Guinness and Hugo said gave him an idea of what he wanted to say. I remember all of you, Junyo said. I remember playing with you three when I was young. I remember listening to Noriko sing, Chiyo cracking jokes, and Masahiro's wise advice. Noboru and Rie would argue all the time about anything and everything because they enjoyed pushing each other's buttons. They had fun getting on each other's nerves. He paused. You're all similar to how I remember you, but the Junyo you might remember isn't standing before you now. He was curious to learn how they had changed over the years, even to find out about his biological parents' past. But he had to refocus on the game. Akira and Mateo put separate plans in motion. They involved the pros and cons of keeping someone in the dark. This situation was to parallel our situation, and they continued to ask the three of us to uncover the truth. He turned to face Guinness and Hugo as if to say he understood if these strangers wouldn't accept him. This proved our parents are not only involved, but also know everything, Hugo said. We won't find out anything until we reach Lunaria, Guinness said, until they tell us. Why bother putting up with the runaround and cryptic clues? Keeping ourselves in the dark would prove safer. Damn it, Guinness said, because Mateo wants us to figure it out before we get there. Hugo glanced from Guinness to Junyo, confused and surprised by what they were saying. He wants me to figure it out before we get there, Hugo said, looking at the book he received from Mateo before he opened it up and reread the note Mateo left him along with it. So I can change things. Or prevent some things from happening altogether, Junyo thought. If there will be nothing else, Junyo said, we're going to take our leave. He turned back to the group. They remained quiet during their exchange, listening to the discussion. He's not heartless, Chiyo said, but his heart has been through a lot. You aren't the Junyo we remember. But finally, you're on the right track now. She winked at him. Had she anticipated this reaction? Had she waited on it? Don't dig through my emotions, Junyo said, not to threaten, but to warn. When you're as good as I am, Chio said, you don't have to dig. It's all there on the surface. Don't worry. Continue on your path. It's working wonders for you. Your father had a wild, adventurous heart. You do too. You just have to reconnect with it. Tell me what you mean, Junyo said, and hoped it didn't come across as a demand. You should already know, Chio said. It's your emotions we're discussing. She meant the fact he was changing. Everything he kept under his control, everything he kept hold of, began to break free and be a benefit rather than a burden. You don't want to stay another night? Atsuko asked in the silence of his conversation with their aunt. I feel like I owe you one. We haven't seen you in ages, Tsuyoshi said. I'd like to know what you did with your life. I hate to say this, but after you left, Chiyoko said, I forgot about you, your sister and your mother. Noboru erased their memories too. He hypnotized them into believing a series of lies like he had done with Akira and himself. Junyo glanced at Noriko, and she nodded as if she knew what he had been thinking. Despite what you think, Noriko said, we'd like to get to know you. I'd like to get to know you. I can't speak for these siblings of mine. Since when? Chio chortled. Noriko threw her a life-threatening glare. You're my nephew, Masahiro said. Your father would never forgive me if I didn't take the chance to connect with you. We can't stay, Gina said. The faster we get to Lunaria, the faster this whole thing ends. He's right, Hugo said. We've got quite the distance to travel, and we're not sure about our timetable. I'll come back, Junyo said slowly, and Akira will be with me. When that time comes, Chio said, we'll be happy to have both of you. She came and gave him a great hug. Junyo couldn't help smile. Chio went to Hugo and gave him the same hug. Hugo laughed. It was Hugo's reaction to the warmth and happiness his aunt exuded, like Junyo's reaction was his smile. Junyo listened to the exchange between them. My daughter's smitten with you, Chio said in a short whisper. She wrapped an arm around his shoulders and tapped him on his chest. She won't admit it, but she's going to miss you. I'm going to miss her, Hugo said. Even though she tried to drown you, Chio said. Even though she tried to drown me, Hugo said. He chuckled. I figured you wouldn't take that personally, Chiyoko said. You were definitely an interesting person to meet, Hugo said. I'm glad I met both of you. Chio chortled. You haven't seen the last of me either. Either of us. They shared a laugh. Take care of yourself, Chio said. And know, you're capable of anything once you put your mind to it. She winked and left Hugo puzzled, yet encouraged. Come along, Chiyoko. I'm right behind you, Chiyoko said. I want to speak with Hugo before he leaves. All right, Chio said, but don't take too long. Chiyoko walked toward Hugo and wrapped her arms around him while placing a hand in his back pocket. The two were so close, it made Atsuko blush. Chiyoko, Atsuko said, your mother is right there. She told her in a harsh whisper. Chiyoko ignored her. She only looked upon Hugo's face and took in his grin. Hugo exuded warmth as well. He and Junyo's aunt Chio had that in common. Considering I tried to take you out, you're pretty relaxed, Chiyoko said. I can imagine how you felt when you thought I killed your uncle, Hugo said. If I had killed you, Chiyoko said, I would have been wrong. You had no reason not to trust your mom, Hugo said. You thought she was right. I would have believed my mom too. I just wouldn't have tried to kill you. He laughed. We're all good though. I've reached the age I'm capable of thinking for myself, Chiyoko said. Parents aren't always right. You learn that lesson when you start seeing them as people. And I learned that lesson a long time ago. Blind trust doesn't get a person anywhere either. If Junyo still had any doubt these people were related to him, hearing his cousin say something that sounded so in line with him and his belief system removed that doubt. Don't beat yourself up about it, Hugo said. Luckily, I can hold my own. You weren't lying when you said you were a skilled fighter. You doubted me? Chiyoko countered with a sly grin. Hugo shifted his eyes to the right. She laughed and playfully shoved him. No, not at all, Hugo said. A brief silence passed between them. And I wasn't beating myself up about it, Chiyoko said. You just don't seem the type. Even though there isn't a type. I should have stopped to think about it. Apology accepted, Hugo said. That wasn't an apology. Chiyoko laughed and shoved him again. I'm glad I got a chance to meet you, Hugo said. Chiyoko kissed him on the cheek. I know. Afterwards, she kissed him for real. A deep, sensual kiss. See you, she said. Junyo, I'm sorry about what happened to your parents, but you have to come back. Guinness, try to be less of a hoe. You needed 2 women? Really? Chiyoko, her mother called. With a slight wave, Chiyoko left, jogging to catch up with Chiyo. That girl, Atsuko said, gazing at Hugo. You must have done something right, Tsuyoshi said, watching after Chiyoko. I've never seen her that invested. What did you do? He turned to Hugo. I didn't do anything, Hugo said. He stopped to think about it and proceeded to think out loud. Maybe I related to her. I think we bonded over being outsiders. That girl, Atsuko said softly, watching after Chiyoko as she and Chiyo walked toward town. Guinness, Masahiro said, appearing in front of Guinness. His sudden appearance surprised Guinness, but Guinness tried to play it off. Older brothers can be trying. Yours committed an unforgivable act. But you have to ask yourself one question. Is his punishment for your family's benefit or for yours? Guinness had a stern expression while he faced Masahiro. According to Teresa, Masahiro said, you're a good man. You'll do what's best. With a short smile, he nodded. Guinness returned the nod. Masahiro appeared in front of Junyo. He moved with a quickness. Come back. I'd be happy to tell you all about him. Masahiro didn't expect him to respond. He turned to leave. What made him want to know when knowing wasn't necessary? Curiosity. Junyo said. He paused. He appreciated it. Thank you. You two are more different than you can know, but I can still see you're his son, Masahiro said. He's in you. The better I get to know you, the more I'm sure I'll see more of him in you. With those words, he walked toward town. Junyo watched after him. Leave it to some stranger to make me realize I don't have enough fight in me, Tsuyoshi said as he put an arm around Guinness's neck and playfully punched him in the stomach. Seriously, thanks. Wasn't sure what I would do. You better get her back is all I have to say, Guinness said. I will, Tsuyoshi said. Cousin, Tsuyoshi said, we've got to hang out again sometime. You don't say much, but you make for a good time. And don't sweat what happened between your folks. Junyo nodded in response. Seriously, Tsuyoshi said, it's not your fault, and it's in the past. You can't change it. You can only accept it as a part of your past. Ha! So Masahiro is your old man, Guinness said. I had my doubts, but you really channeled him there for a minute. Shut up, Tsuyoshi said. Hugo, make sure you try some UAT when you get the chance. You can't leave Lunastra without having any. I'll definitely get some then, Hugo said. Tsuyoshi headed back toward the town. Noriko walked toward Junyo and embraced him. You became a strong man, she said in a low voice close to Junyo's ear. What you've heard today, I know won't harm you. Despite her one heinous action, know your mother was amazing. She held on to his arms as she broke the embrace and stared into his eyes. Whatever lies at the end of this road you're traveling, Akura wouldn't mention a word of it to me. However, the thought of it upset her deeply. She continued to speak in hushed tones. She broke down in my arms for a short while. If that's any indication, the end won't fare well for the three of you. Junyo was aware of that fact. Akura rarely let people see her troubled. Attuned to others' emotions, empathy allowed her to control her own. To lose herself to her emotions, something either had to have broken her heart or wrestled control away from her. I have to get to her, Junyo said. We'll continue forward. Whether their siblings are in trouble or they are, we continue forward, Junyo said to himself. I wish the three of you luck, Noriko said. If your parents could see how you turned out, I don't think they'd have believed it. You got your father's good looks and your mother's intelligence and skills. A slight chuckle escaped her, which surprised him and Atsuko. Until next time, nephew. He watched as her expression changed to the neutral one he knew so well. She took the rifle from her back and gave it back to him. You should keep this, Noriko said. She headed toward town. Be nice, Atsuko. I'll only be a minute, Atsuko said. She turned across. She stood across from Junyo, but she couldn't look at him. I'm sorry for what your mother did. Tears slowly slid down her cheek, but she quickly wiped them away. Regardless of what I think, Atsuko said, I'm sorry for what she did. I enjoyed talking to you, Junyo. When you return, I hope we can talk again. He could tell she accepted him despite how flawed she thought his thinking was. Hugo, Atsuko turned to him, I'll see Chiyoko differently because of you. I won't let her feel so alone. Guinness, despite what Chiyoko said earlier, I have this feeling. No, I know. There's a lot more to you. You're more than just sex and one-night stands. Don't hide that part of yourself. She started to walk away, but quickly ran to Junyo to whisper in his ear. Hugo and Guinness know they can depend on you, she said. I hope you know you can depend on them. Goodbye. Atsuko caught up with her mother and grasped her arm. They walked together toward town. He glanced at Hugo and Guinness. Ready? He asked. He thought about Atsuko's words. She could have a point. Always ready, Guinness said. We have some things we need to discuss when we get the chance. I agree, Junyo said. Hugo flipped through the pages of his book. We don't know where we're headed next. This time they didn't leave a clue or hint. Guinness checked over his map. We're en route to Lunaria, Guinness said. That's the goal. Guess we don't have any more scheduled stops along the way. On foot, Junyo said. We'll be traveling for about a month and a half. I'm going to rustle up some Looney's dragons. We can ride there, Guinness said. From the sound of his voice, he dreaded any kind of walk that would last a month and a half. No, Hugo said. We should travel on foot. Why? Guinness asked. Junyo started walking, and Hugo and Guinness followed in conversation. One thing is obvious, right? At the end of the road, they expect us to be stronger. At least Akira does. She pointed this out. She pointed this out to me in the beginning. This trial she put us through seems to prove it. She pointed it out to you, Guinness said. When was this? That's something I want to talk about. You and Junyo, Akira and Mateo. What am I missing? What happened before you two met up with me? We'll discuss that, Junyo said. It's about time we did. We'll start training too, Hugo said, to get stronger. We might have to grab a drink and celebrate, Guinness said. I think we've officially gotten on the same page. Hugo laughed, nodded in agreement. Junyo hid a smile, walking in front of them. 5 years ago, life changed for Akira, Mateo, and Jackson. To deal with this change, the three clung to each other. Something happened recently that sent them down different paths while still clinging to each other. Neither one game nor one puzzle existed. They didn't only have separate goals. They were working with and against each other. This was the reason he, Guinness, and Hugo had trouble coming up with concrete answers. They expected them to follow their rules a specific way because they thought they knew them. In all honesty, they had known them for a while, which is what gave them the advantage in this game. He, Guinness, and Hugo had to beat all three of them. Whether the three were divided or united at this game or risk severe consequences. All right, guys, that was the end of Jeopardy! Tomorrow is section 3 entitled Gumption. Thanks for listening and hope you come back tomorrow. Adios.